You, an unchallenged gifted student in a classroom, will find ways to occupy themselves that are less than desirable. Behaviors that range from, and I have to admit this is my daughter, arranging and organizing a March of Freedom in school, which I have to add, she did overturn the rule that she was against by doing this, but I digress, to acting out in far more destructive ways. Anxiety, self-harm, suicidal ideation are common amongst gifted learners. Gifted kids have minds that never stop, and those minds must be challenged and supported. It's time that we take the lid off of learning for these bright young people. Please, we ask you to increase gifted funding in this state to be more in line with the states surrounding us. I thank you for your time.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Tony Wedgeworth, and I'm part of a team that manages the various Lori Knapp companies. We've supported people in Wisconsin since 1972 with assisted living, in-home cares, and self-directed services. Our management has played key roles in the governor's task force on caregiving, WIPSA, WALA, and many other great Wisconsin organizations. I'm here today to speak on the caregiver crisis in Wisconsin and how you can help. As a provider agency, we have seen difficulties in recruiting and retaining caregivers. Their wages are low. There's almost no benefits. 50% of them have to live on public assistance. It's a tough situation. Finding ways to attract and retain this workforce will only come with an increase in wages and benefits. Unfortunately, the provider agencies have only seen increases in expenses and decreases in reimbursement rates. This makes it tough to give raises. We ask that you move forward with the budget proposals presented by the governor that promote caregiving workforce. This includes the the family care capitation rate, the statewide rate ban, personal care rate income increase, and the income disregard for caregivers. The last one is the provider caregiver registry for self-directed in-home and facility care basis, such as the Lightest Touch software, which was proposed by the governor's task force and adds no funding required. The budget proposals related to the caregiving crisis are vital to the state and essential to the health and well-being to Wisconsin.
Good morning. I'm Margaret Breisch. I'm a former school board member from Menomonie, and my testimony is being followed by Amy Riddle Swanson, who is a current school board member at Menomonie. And both of us are going to be talking about the Wisconsin Parental Choice Program as it pertains to elementary schools. And I'm going to begin by highlighting 3 points. Details will be in your written testimony, which you will receive tomorrow. So first, the private school vouchers for elementary schools were $8,300 this year, while the average tuition was only about $3,400. This is almost a $5,000 difference and adds up to about $44.6 million in overpayments. And this is only for these elementary schools. This does not include overpayments to high schools or overpayments in the Racine Choice program. Secondly, about 25% of the voucher costs end up on the local property tax level. The full cost of the vouchers go on the property tax in 1 year, and then the school district gets to count those students for state aid purposes the following year. The problem is that the voucher costs are about $3,000 more than the average general aid per student. And so the property tax fills up that gap, 25%, and it keeps going up. And finally, the vouchers do not save the state any money. Some believe the state saves money by offering vouchers because the cost of vouchers is less than the cost of a student in a public school. They overlook the fact that most families who send their children to private schools would send them even without vouchers. 73% of the students who received vouchers when the Wisconsin Parental Choice Program was launched were already enrolled in their private schools. And these same schools have seen minimum enrollments, less than increases in enrollment, less than 1% increase since joining the program. Parents are not clamoring to get their children out of public schools because we have great schools. We have great schools. You don't need those private schools, and we don't need to be paying $44.6 million in overpayments.
Did I call your name?
My name? Oh. Yes, you called her in the next set.
Yes, my name is Amy Riddle Swanson, and we were actually stapled together. We asked to speak together.
Well, I'm done, and then you called out Amy's name separately.
Okay. And we were together. May I speak?
Go ahead.
Okay. I would like to speak to you about how private school vouchers are not in alignment with purpose of the education. Our forefathers believed public education was necessary for all children for a variety of reasons, but mostly to give all segments of society an equal opportunity to succeed in life, from the poor to the middle class to the rich. Public education is a great equalizer, and it needs to be supported for the good of society. A public education is an entitlement as it is open and free to all, whereas a private education is a privilege and not an entitlement. Public education is designed to prepare and train someone in the necessary skills to have the ability to participate in society as a full citizen. Those skills go beyond the scope of the 4 primary subjects of math, science, English, and history. Education's purpose is to prepare children for citizenship, cultivate a skilled workforce, teach cultural literacy, prepare students for college, help students become critical thinkers, and to help students compete in a global marketplace. Benjamin Barber describes public schools as our sole public resource, the only place where, as a collective self-conscious public pursuing common goods, we try to shape our children to live in a democratic world. Barber goes on to say, equality is achieved not by handicapping the swiftest, but by assuring the less advantaged a comparable opportunity. Schooling allows those born poor to compete with those born rich. Statute 4.11b describes the purpose of public education as preparing students for adult life by attending to their intellectual and developmental needs and challenging them to achieve at their highest level possible. In conjunction with families and other community institutions, public education prepares students to become self-directed, lifelong learners and responsible, involved citizens. Privatization undermines public education. It leaves the public unprotected. Do not support private for-profit school diploma mills. Support public education. And thank you for your time.
My name is Janelle Ebner, and I'm a special education teacher at Indian Trail High School in Kenosha, where I've worked for 8 years. Prior to working for the district, I worked in the field of child development for 27 years. But I needed to leave that profession. Why? It's not a pretty story. It was because I was in a physically and verbally abusive marriage, which I finally had the courage to leave. Even though I had worked my way from assistant teacher to administrator of multi-site programs, child development didn't offer benefits and retirement, so I could properly care for my children and plan for my future. With a bachelor's degree, I took a $9 per hour pay cut to be a paraprofessional, where I sought my teacher licensure and went on to earn my master's. But I am here to share another story, a story about why we need to focus on retaining educators. On March 13th, 2020, I said goodbye to my students for the weekend, so I thought. It had already been a particularly stressful week. We had a time change due to daylight savings, there was a full moon, and it was Friday the 13th. Anyone who works in any capacity dealing with people will agree that this trifecta is definitely a cause for a crazy few days. But by the end of the weekend, COVID-19 hit our area, and we were told that we were not coming back in person. 1 year later, we are still dealing with this. I didn't know that this was the beginning of the most stressful and bleary year of my career. I didn't know that at first teachers would be hailed as amazing and a godsend and thanked beyond belief, to later having to defend their commitment to their profession. We were not prepared. We were not prepared as a world, a country, a state, a city, or a school district to deal with this. Teachers were not prepared, but we pulled it together and we did what we could do at a moment's notice, and we were saluted and praised, exalted and celebrated. Now this is not the case. However, there are things that can be done now to support those of us who stepped up to the plate during this pandemic. The profession of the teacher has been grossly deprofessionalized. We feel exhausted, fearful, and defeated. Teachers need raises and we need our bargaining rights. We are at a point where many of us plan to seek other careers as we are overwhelmed with the shaming lack of support and stress we have endured. Recruiting and retaining teachers is a problem in our country. After this year, how are we going to make sure that enough of us stay in the field to properly educate our children? Please remember us when you vote on the budget.
Thank you for hearing us today on this very important issue. If all of you haven't noticed the impact of nursing this past year with the pandemic, I don't know what else could bring us more visible. I'm here to speak not only as a nursing faculty member, I'm an assistant professor of nursing at UW-Eau Claire, but I'm also a nurse. As you can see, I'm all set to help nurses put needles in arms at the FEMA clinic. That's at UW-Eau Claire 6 days a week. This could not happen without our nursing students and faculty. Unfortunately, at UW-Eau Claire alone, we are short right now by 7.9 FTA. So what that means is that we are already short-staffed, but we also have the heart to do the FEMA clinic because we know how important it is for our students and for our communities in a broader sense. In northwestern Wisconsin, we have the largest area and the least amount of resources to provide for nursing educators. I just don't know how in 2 minutes I can tell you about my journey in education when I have been at UW-Eau Claire for almost 29 years. Believe it. I began at UW-Eau Claire as a first-generation college student. I was the daughter of a family of 7 and the first to receive my bachelor's degree. I have 30 seconds to tell you the rest. I received my master's degree and my doctorate of nursing practice all at UW-Eau Claire. I have only ever lived in Chippewa County, and Senator Bernier can attest to that because we went to high school together and probably UW-Eau Claire together, and she already knows that. I hope you will support this $10 million initiative to provide us more nursing educations that are homegrown like myself. And what have I done? I've been able to provide students the opportunity to not only give FEMA shots in the arms, but also I've taken students to the second poorest region in the whole United States and provide care for our Native American population. I take students to care for the Latinx population in rural farms, and we've provided them with COVID vaccinations and influenza vaccines that they would have never gotten if we hadn't been able to do that. I thank you for your time and could tell you a lot more, but maybe I'll write to your offices. Thank you, and please support our cause.
Thank you. It's a 9-hour round-trip drive here from Kenosha, so I just want to thank those of you who are present and listening to us. My name is Tanya Kitzlewinski. I am a 17-year teacher in Wisconsin Public Schools, and I currently teach at Indian Trail High School in Kenosha. I teach in our self-contained unit for students with severe emotional and behavioral challenges. Passing the public education budget proposed by Governor Evers and based on recommendations by the Republican-led Blue Ribbon Commission is important so we can meet the mental health and wellness needs of students and educators. I don't think I have to convince any of you that this past year has been a challenge for us all. As educators, we've continued to triage mental health crises while doing our very best to educate and nurture our students and keep our own heads above water. During that time, I worked with Protective Services to intervene in a confirmed abuse situation, spoke to a student from his hospital bed who had overdosed on prescription drugs, and helped coordinate calls, cards, and fundraising efforts for another student who lost his 24-year-old brother and then his mother to COVID. I also spent time sending cards, flowers, and care packages to educators who lost spouses and parents to COVID and had just 6 paid days to grieve before returning to the classroom. While our district has had conflict regarding the best way to serve students in the midst of a pandemic, the common ground every stakeholder in Kenosha agrees upon is that our schools play a vital role as first responders for mental health and well-being of students, and we have to fund our schools in a way that reflects that. But we also can't ignore the same needs in the adults who serve our students. Our mental health and well-being matters in how we're able to show up for the students we love. Educators have been tasked with so much. My colleagues and I are exhausted. Many are considering other career paths with less responsibility and more respect. We need to keep high-quality educators sustaining in the careers we love by restoring professional voice, predictable salary schedules, reasonable workloads, and to do anything less would harm the mental health and well-being of us all. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you begin, please, we mentioned earlier if you want to support a position, stand. That's awesome, but please don't applause.
Hello, my name is Anna Ricard. I'm an 8th grade special education teacher in Kenosha, and I'm here to advocate for adequate funding for our public schools. Through my 7 years of teaching, I've had the opportunity to work with so many intelligent, caring students, many of whom struggle with mental health. Governor Evers' proposals include an increase in funding for school-based mental health services, something Wisconsin's children deserve access to. An increase in these grants would be invaluable. My school already offers school-based mental health services. The needs are so high that there is a waiting list to see a therapist. I currently have a student on this waiting list. He has changed schools twice in the last 3 years due to behavioral concerns. Despite his challenges, this student tries hard. He is caring, plays on our basketball team, and wants to succeed. Recently, he was almost sent to an alternative school. He would have lost his opportunity to play basketball, which is a positive activity for after-school hours, and been uprooted to his third school in his middle school career. I worry for his future if he's not able to access services soon. My student and so many others should be able to access needed mental health services at their home schools. Think of how his educational and life paths could be different if he didn't remain on a waiting list month after month. Think of the students in districts across our state that don't even have a waiting list for kids to be placed on. The proposed funding for mental health services is a need, and I urge you to support this increase. I am fortunate to have the opportunity to be an advocate here today, and also ask that you reestablish collective bargaining rights which will give educators the chance to be better advocates for our students through more meaningful collaboration with our districts. We know what is best for our students and ourselves as educators. Give us the chance to have a seat at the table and work with our districts. As this committee has discussions and make decisions, please remember that funding for public schools is an investment in our students, educators, and the future. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Wesley Wilka, and I am a program supervisor representing my organization, REM Wisconsin. We provide residential support to individuals with developmental disabilities, brain injuries, mental health challenges, and dementia. In the work that we do, we try to bring a family atmosphere to those that may not have experienced that kind of support in the past. We bridge the gap between the individual, the community, and society as a whole. I moved to this area from my home state of Arkansas almost a decade ago and began looking for a company that would foster my need to help others. I wanted to nurture and to teach those that might not have had a safe place to grow or to learn that I had been blessed with. I came upon REM and I never looked back. They advertised as a place that accepted folks that other places couldn't. If you had a need, REM could help. They would take you in, give you a place to live, surround you with a well-trained, loving staff that would encourage your growth, and when the time was right, they would facilitate you moving out into the community that you had been participating in. They would help you find a job, they would teach you different skills, show you ways to communicate, and REM would help build these skills in a warm environment. And for a guy fresh here from Arkansas with no immediate family in the area myself, this sounded pretty awesome. I came to the company and I've been amazed at what they have been able to accomplish. That was almost 10 years ago, and in the last few years I have started to become disheartened. I have seen many changes. I have seen rate cuts, group home closures. I have seen our well-trained, loving staff leave. I have seen them forget the clients that we've been training over the time. They have left for better jobs. They have left for Walmart, Quick Trip, McDonald's. Our great caregivers have left for more lucrative jobs, and the rate cuts have really cut into the great company that I really do care for. Where does this leave the people that we have been taking care of in this time period? Please just remember the people that are in our homes, and please don't forget them when the time comes.
And just a quick note, I know this isn't funding related, but it's also in the biannual budget through weird quirks of legislation. Landlord-tenant reform is up on this legislation as well, and I think this is a major initiative that should be supported, requiring landlords to disclose all health and safety risks of their properties. This is the bare minimum I think Wisconsin landlords should be doing already, and it is outrageous that it's not already done. This has been one of my initiatives in my tenure at the student government to make our off-campus housing safer for all students. I thank you all for the time, and I appreciate you all coming to listen to your constituents.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome.
I want to talk to everybody here about prison. We all know that this committee is going to pass a budget that wastes a ton of money on new prisons. A majority of Wisconsin has voted for less prison. We are for alternatives for decriminalization of drugs, for education and mental health support, but these people don't care about what the majority of the people in Wisconsin want. If they did, they wouldn't be in power in this gerrymandered way.
Direct your comments.
I don't want to talk to you, you're a fraud. I want everyone here to understand what prison is really for. It doesn't make us safer, it doesn't rehabilitate, it doesn't help. Prison is about letting these people control the rest of us. 15, fitting us into an exploitative economy. Wisconsin has been robbed by economic policies that cut workers out, closing factories and mills, ripping off both the farmers and city workers to make business owners and mega corporations who are friends of these people rich. Prison is a threat that looms over all working people in this state. When the constant stress of low wages and economic neglect breaks someone down and they resort to crimes of survival or succumb to mental breakdowns or addiction, this state does not offer help, it offers prison. We know this committee will not fund education. We know they will not help people in economic distress. They won't help people whose health is in jeopardy. They just want us to endure, to keep working for less, to keep making their rich friends richer. When we can't, that's when they have something for us, something that they are happy to spend millions of dollars on, prisons. So I want every working person who hears my voice to recognize that when healthcare and education get cut to fund prisons by this committee, what they are doing is threatening us. They are trying to keep us down. And so I say next time, we need to fight back instead of begging.
Thank you. Welcome. Good afternoon.
So, you guys think you can get away from us? Well, you can't. You try to hold these meetings at times where privileged people can take off work and those who've been systematically oppressed can't. Just take a look around the room and see how many people look like me. See how many people are black and brown and have the ability to be here today. It's not that they don't want to, it's not that they don't have time, it's that they have to work, okay? So you can say, let's go where the rich are. Well, I'm coming here too. We're not deterred by the conservative, selfish money hoarders you invite to come stack the deck in favor of your pet projects. This isn't over for you, and it's not over for the 20,000 people I'm here to speak in favor of. The 20,000 people you want to lock up in prisons and waste taxpayer money keeping there. We're going to continue to make you look stupid and selfish, yelling at you even though we all know you don't care. The people in this room and the people listening on TV aren't stupid. They're just using the only method you've given them to try to make a difference for this state. Stop putting people in prisons. Stop wasting the time of our own for your own personal gain, and stop acting like this process is legitimate. Everyone else here, and I'm going to direct this to the forefront because apparently I can't talk to other citizens. Everyone here, if you want money from these people, tell them to take it from the prison system. Okay? They spend $1.7 billion on criminal justice and prisons to lock away 20,000 people. 20,000 people. You do the math. How much of that bloated budget are you asking for? These fucking politicians aren't here to listen to you. They don't care about your needs. Look at this sour face. Look at that one. Look at that one. They don't want to wear masks because they don't want to care. They don't care to keep us from dying. Okay? They're here because they have to be. Don't thank them for giving you the time of day. Don't pander to them. Make them squirm. Make them think you're incensed because you should be. Our lives, our money, our futures are in the hands of these shithead money mongerers who want to ignore you no matter what you say or how you say it. Tell them enough is enough. Give it to them hard, and don't stop today.
I'm here today to talk on 3 important topics. One is small businesses. As you've gone and heard today plenty of times, businesses are basically as much the lifeblood of Wisconsin. 70% of them currently are still around, especially like after over a year of this pandemic. But think about it. What about like really minority-owned businesses? 50% of them, if not more, happen to get very little to no funding and PPP. If you happen to basically as much like Liddy, give them the exact funding and attention that they need, more of them would still be around today. They should be priority number one. Secondly, would be redistricting. It shouldn't be left up to the courts or better yet the legislature to go and decide what us people should go and vote for. Us people happen to go and make the decisions that literally us people basically as much go and happen to make the decisions of who should be representing us in the legislature and in the Senate. We deserve that transparency 100% for future election reasons, and literally it should not be hidden behind closed doors. And lastly, it would be voting. We need more voting expansion. Neighborhoods in Milwaukee that are majority black should not have to go and deal with long voter lines, very few voting places to go to, and even like Liddy, a limited amount of time to go and attend an absentee ballot. These individuals like myself shouldn't have to go and like Liddy deal with these barriers, deal with these hoops they're trying to attempt to go and jump through in order to like Liddy have our voices heard. Literally consider these three options when they're going and like Liddy doing the state budget. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon.
This past year, it's really hard to imagine the future. But I think you want, and I want, a future where Wisconsin leads in engineering and innovation. I think you want a future where Wisconsin leads in fields like data science, AI, cyber defense, high-tech agriculture, carbon-free energy. We want a future where Wisconsinites are innovators and with technical expertise and a rich understanding of history and culture. People like me are here to build this future, so listen carefully. I teach mathematics, statistics, and computer science here at UW-Stout. I was trained by the best in the world. Frankly, I'm an expert in these fields. Mathematical physics, applied AI, data science. I am not unique though, I'm not special. These buildings around you are full of world-class experts in their fields. The UW system is full of brilliant people who every day pour our heart and our soul into our students. You can hear that in my voice. We train our students from being awkward teenagers into career-ready professionals. We foster students' interests and build them into expertise. We find students jobs, we train them for job interviews. I'm here today because for a decade, the UW system has been starved and neglected. Right now, this year, it is at its breaking point. We can't go any further. Every year, year upon year, we've made painful cuts that harm our students and weaken our academic programs. Our best instructors are leaving in droves. They're demoralized and underpaid. If nothing changes, if you reject the governor's budget, then campus finances will collapse this biennium, or maybe next, within 3 years for sure. I did the analysis myself. I'm a math professor. You can trust me on that. I've run the numbers. I'm on the finance committee at this campus. We are at the end of our rope. It is essential that the legislature funds the tuition freeze and allows greater flexibility for campus funding through grants and so on. The UW system is on a razor's edge, and this is the moment that you are going to decide its fate. Are we going to have a UW system or not 3 years from now? That's the question. Thank you.
Hello. Been waiting a long time to be here. It's good to finally hear my own voice. My name is Ethan Reed. I'm a student leader here at Stout. I've been leading students for about 3 years. I'm here to talk to you guys today about two things. Wisconsin Institute for Sustainable Technology needs an increase of about $730,000 over the next 2 years, and also behavioral and mental support needs more. I said that wrong. Behavioral and mental health support needs more for, I think, the tune of $10 million over 2 years. So let me give you an anecdote. When I was a sophomore, I found myself sitting on a park bench under the clock tower, not half a mile that way. My life didn't have a purpose, and I had thought about suicide for the first time. Staring past the clock tower to the stars, I didn't want to self-destruct. My best friend sat silently beside me as I decided to leave university. My privilege allowed me to leave, hire a psychiatrist, and hire a therapist in the city of Green Bay. My privilege allowed me to return to university not one semester later. I only missed a single semester because of my health care, my support that I had for myself in hiring a psychiatrist and a therapist. We don't have the resources at Stout that students need, and students' health is on the line. But I came back, and here I am. So if you need a reminder, that's Wisconsin's Institute for Sustainable Technologies at UW-Stevens Point, $700,000 over 2 years, and $10 million over 2 years for behavioral and mental health support.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Corpola, and I'm the director of the Dunn County Department of Human Services. And I'm here, I would start by saying that there are two things that I commonly hear as a human services administrator. One is I get asked how long I've been involved in human resources, to which I tell them it's human services. But then the second, which relates to that, is that people are continually amazed at how many things fall under the umbrella of the human services department. There are a number of initiatives in the biennial budget related to human service work. Some of them are smaller ticket items, enhanced birth to 3 funding, enhanced child support funding, looking at income maintenance, sustaining income maintenance activities across our state. Some of them are bigger ticket items, child welfare funding, mental health funding, youth justice funding. I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you for the $30.5 million in the last biennium for child welfare funding. In Dunn County, that had a very real impact in the work that we do. We were able to hire 2 additional child welfare staff. We were able to increase some community-based programming in child welfare. We subsequently have retained staff at a better rate, and we have reduced our out-of-home placement numbers. So that money, which was about $265,000 in Dunn County, had a direct impact on the work that we do. The other thing that has happened out of the last biennium that has a direct impact on human services is we were able to add a judgeship, just elected now, will start in August, as well as 2 additional prosecutorial staff. And those are critical to the work that we do of bringing children to permanency and families to be reunified, and mental health folks to receive the types of services that they need to receive. So I would just ask your support to take a serious look at some of those human services initiatives. I would say that we have also, I'm going to throw in a little pitch to support for SB 86, which is related to expanded mental health bed space. Western Wisconsin has been hit hard. In 2013, we emergency detained about 5% of the people that were emergency detained in the Western region went to Winnebago Mental Health Institute. In 2020, about 27% of the people that were emergency detained in Western Wisconsin went to Winnebago Mental Health Institute. That's 400 people who made that ride across the state in handcuffs in the back of the car, as you heard earlier. So I'd ask your support for that legislation as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for allowing me to speak, and thank you for your service to the people of Wisconsin. My name is Richard Diaz. I'm a community organizer from the city of Milwaukee, and I'm also the chair of the Coalition on Lead Emergency, also known as COLE. So I'm here to advocate for 3 items that are in dire need of funding across the biennium and beyond. You know, in the city of Milwaukee in 2020, we found out that our health department does not have funding to respond to families who test for high levels of lead. The CDC defines someone being lead poisoned if they test at 5 micrograms per deciliter within their blood. Our City of Milwaukee Health Department only has enough funds to respond to an individual who tests at 4 times that limit, which is 20 micrograms per deciliter. And as you may know, that if somebody tests at 6 micrograms per deciliter at any point in their life, they are 60% more likely to commit a violent crime. This past January, we sent out a survey to all the health departments across the state and realized that our health department in the city of Milwaukee is a microcosm for how the state responds to lead. Our first ask is for $20.3 million for health departments in the state of Wisconsin so that we can do adequate testing and catch people before they get poisoned by lead. We want to do adequate education to families, and we want to expand the Birth to 3 program so we're able to service families. Our second ask is for $23.8 million to reduce lead poisoning by paint. Let's equip health departments with the resources needed to intervene when families test at the CDC's defined definition of lead poisoning. Places like Grant, Greene County, Dodge County, Fond du Lac County, Sheboygan County, Green Lake, Wapaka, Clark, Ashland, Manitowoc, Rock County, Racine County suffer in the same way that Milwaukee does. So this isn't just a Milwaukee issue. Our last ask is for $40 million to replace lead service lines. Let's get lead out of our water and out of our homes. Let's prioritize the health of Black, brown, and white children across the state and equip our health departments to respond to families affected by lead. I have a few documents to hand you all. I'll give that to the clerk. Thank you.
centers, nor are we federally qualified health centers. We don't receive any significant funding from our federal or state governments. I'm here today to support funding for 3 key initiatives in the 2021 to 23 5-year budget. First, an increase grants to free and charitable clinics. In 2019, a grant program under the Wisconsin DHS for $500,000 a year was established for the efforts of the Joint Finance Committee. Thank you. Greatly appreciated the COVID pandemic has strained our clinics. Patient volumes are rising due to unemployment, and many of the clinics are serving as COVID-19 vaccination sites. Respectfully, we would encourage a funding more than $2.5 to $4 million range. Number 2, a uniform definition of free and charitable clinics. A consistent definition of free and charitable clinics is not in the state statute. This can cause confusion as to what entities are eligible for funds this legislation is setting aside for our clinics to serve. Included at the bottom of this testimony is a clear definition of free and charitable clinics that was included in the governor's budget, as well as submitted by Senator Kolega and Representative Loudon. Number 3, Wisconsin has one of the lowest Medicaid reimbursement rates of any state, being 20 cents on the dollar. Charitable dental clinics have long wait lines and need to raise $20,000 to $30,000 per chair in donations annually. The Medicaid dental reimbursement pilot was highly successful when implemented at the Oral Health Partnership and FCC in Green Bay. We would encourage the Wisconsin Medicaid program to enhance reimbursement to improve dental access. In summary, the Wisconsin Association of Free and Charitable Clinics strongly encourage your support in funding of these initiatives in the 2021-23 biennial budget.
Good afternoon. My name is John Havenchuk. I live and teach in La Crosse. I want to thank everybody who's here today, taking the time out of their day. I'm hoping to break up your day just a little bit with my 2 minutes. We're going to play a game. We're going to play 2 truths and a lie, but we're going to flip it on its head. We're going to play 2 lies and a truth. And we're going to play the cray-cray edition. Those of you that have adolescents around, you know what cray-cray means. I'm going to tell you 3 things that are absurd, that are so unbelievable, they're cray-cray. No rational adult could believe them. But one of them is going to be true, and you have to pick the one that's true. Number 1, you ready? In no particular order. The Grand Canyon was created by Paul Bunyan's axe. He was chopping wood one day and was tired and was dragging his axe along the ground a little bit, and it was so big and heavy, it created the Grand Canyon. I know this is going to be tough. Number 2, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs are evil masterminds trying to control the world. Bill Gates spies on us through our computers, and Steve Jobs is trying to change our DNA using 5G cell service. I know this is going to be hard. Number 3, Robin Voss will not accept over $1 billion every 2 years in Medicaid expansion money because the program was started by a Democrat president who also happened to be a black man, no matter how many Wisconsinites he hurts. Now it's time to decide, and everybody in here can play along. Hold up the number of fingers for which one of these absolute lunacies is actually true. 1, 2, or 3. Take the money. Thank you.
My name's Allie Holtzman. I'm here as a parent to speak in support of the proposed funding for public education in the governor's budget. My daughter Olivia, she's a 5th grader in Cumberland. This year our school district was forced to go to referendum again for the second time in 5 years. We passed our referendum in 2016, but this year's failed. Those of us in our communities are doing our part to support our schools and our students. We all know our schools are the backbones of our communities, and we're doing what we can to support them. But because of the state's continuous underfunding, we keep being asked to do more and more, and we don't have the capacity for it in our small towns. That's why Governor Evers' proposal for the state to live up to its commitment to fund 2/3 of the cost of educating our kids is so needed. And we all know that our education system is our teachers. Our schools can only be as good as our teachers. It's crucial to grade schools that we have teachers who are fairly compensated for the work they're doing and what's being asked of them. Last year, my daughter was in 4th grade, and her teacher, Mrs. Sommerfeld, would read a book to the kids every day during snack break. It was kind of like chapter a day on WPR. It was one of her favorite parts of the day. And when the schools closed in March and everyone got sent home, Mrs. Sommerfeld wanted to keep doing that to finish the book they were reading, and actually she went on and read a whole nother book. But her internet at home was so bad that she couldn't upload her video. So every day from March on through the last day of school, she would film a video of herself with her little dog reading to the kids, and then she would drive the 10 or so miles into town so she could upload the video every day so we could watch it at home. And that's just one example of, everything the teachers have done over this past year. They've done everything that we have asked of them and more. And all the teachers that my daughter's had in Cumberland have had such an impact on her life. It really can't be overstated. Our educators are the ones in the classroom with our kids all day, every day. They're the ones who know what our kids need, and they need to be able to have a collective voice to advocate for their students and for fair compensation and working conditions. So while we have huge disparities in salaries for our teachers, especially in rural areas, we need to fix these things and make sure that we are treating our educators fairly if we want to maintain a stellar system of schools in our state. Thank you.
Fought for job security and fair pay because I think those are things we need and deserve to teach our students well. We couldn't get that just by asking administration. I lost my job in that fight because we didn't have an enforceable contract. It's not good for my students, not good for the UW system, it's not good for me. Last thing is, I just wanted to give a shout out to the Expo testifiers today. I don't think any of them are in here, but I found your testimony really inspiring and brave.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Just a side comment before I begin. I arrived here about 10:15, and little did I know it'd be 4.5 hours. So I've taken some breaks. I was in the other room for a while, and I brought this book along, Democracy in One Book or Less, David Litt. Boy, this is loaded with eye-openers. Read it. My name is Steve Hogsett. I'm from Menomonie. Thank you for the opportunity to express my concerns on Wisconsin's budget. As an engineering graduate from the UW-Madison, my 4-decade career was rooted in following the science. Sadly, half our nation has become increasingly dismissive of science. Since 1800, the world's population has increased 8-fold. Since statehood, Wisconsin's 1848 population has increased 20-fold. Neither the world nor Wisconsin is creating more topsoil, nor water, nor air. In the 1980s, I began to study the effects of mankind's misbehaviors upon our complex ecological web. By sheer numbers, we have stressed our precarious ecosystem. Our misbehaviors have exacerbated and compounded problems. Exploitation and low regard for sparse resources is shameful. Myopia negates vision. The moment has become king. Our children and grandchildren will pay the price. In my years of attending to science, it is clear that for many, financial greed is first, second, and third, and then perhaps a shallow, tepid courtesy is paid to the only home we have, planet Earth and Wisconsin. My concern is our leaders do not have the necessary focus as to what is essential for sustaining our core foundation, the foundation for the most precious needs of health and vitality. Unless we take care of our soils, water, air, and the fabric of our fragile ecological web, our society risks peril, and we will fail. I will close with a broad brush statement on the budget. Please give foresight to those items that will assure we optimize the care for Mother Nature. For ultimately, she holds all the aces. The reward will be a long-term optimal quality of life for nearly 6 million Wisconsinites. And I am, as far as the budget items.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hello. My name is Xavier Hauser. I'm 15 years old and I have cerebral palsy. That means my brain was injured and my brain and body don't talk to each other the way some other people's do. That doesn't mean I can't think and that I don't have dreams and passions. I'm a sophomore in high school and this year with COVID has been really hard. But it has also given me educational access and opportunities I've never had before, and I've been in school since I was 3 years old. When people look at me, they often think I can't do things because I do not talk and I use a wheelchair. They treat me like a baby, and I hate that. I wish people would presume competence when they look at me. Just because I don't speak with my mouth does not mean I do not have anything to say. After 12 years in school, I finally got my eye gaze speech device last fall. I'm not sure if you realize this, but it is very challenging to use your eyes to find all of the words you need for a conversation when you have to search a giant list of words. I really like having this tool. You can listen to me today because of it. School did not help me get this device, a doctor did. My mom had to ask doctors in school over and over to help get my words. School could have helped a long time ago, because they have devices like this, but not enough people to help teach me. There are 8 people in my district, which has 52 schools. I could have been able to speak much sooner if resources were not spread so thin. During COVID, I have attended more regular education classes than ever because I am not restricted by the accessibility of my school building, and also my mom has been giving me the one-to-one support my IEP says I need. I am taking world history this year, and I have built a society to find the concept of animism and more. I also finished first semester in that class with honors. My aides at school try to help. I really like them, but there are not enough of them for me to be supported the way I need. I think I deserve the same opportunities as my peers. The special education reimbursement rate has been woefully low for 12 years. I thank you for the increase in the last biennium, but my district had to go to referendum just to make it so I can breathe in my school and get to classes that work will finally complete after my senior year. Please take up Governor Evers' proposal to fund reimbursement at 50% and make it so that other kids don't have to wait until they are almost done with school and have a pandemic happen before they have a chance at an education that meets their needs. Thank you.
This is my daughter, Jasmine Straw. I gave her the first couple minutes here. So Just wanted to remind everybody what special education means to her as an 8-year-old.
I like my school because it's so fun, and I like to do things with Mr. and math, and I do social group. And this is Jasmine, and I always play a lot, and I always see Diaz a lot, and my class has a calendar, and I do ones, tens, hundreds.
What do you like about your teacher?
Math and calendar, and mommy's a computer, and she has a meeting, and mommy wanted to play with me and play tag, and mommy wanted to play tag with me, and I was running and I started laughing, and I wanted to say we love you. I love you, Mommy.
Oh, love you, Kitty.
My class is a computer class, and I just talked to Diaz, and Maya is playing on the trampoline, and I love playing in my bouncy house because I like to play games on my tablet, and I like to play games on my phone too, and I like to play games on my iPad too, and watch videos, and my school is cool because Miss Ursa has her button on, and Mommy has her paper right there, and Mommy has soda, and Mommy has some snacks for me, and I like to eat some snacks, and Mommy plays tag with me, and
This girl will keep going all day if we don't see any timers over there. Give me you guys 5. Okay.
And Mommy plays at the hotel with me, and she goes to sleep with me in Eau Claire because in the family hotel that I sleep with her all day, and this class is so cool because I like to play with Miss Ursa in class and do writing and social group and math and no.
I have to ask her quick. Am I getting my separate 2 minutes? Otherwise, she's going to eat up everything. Okay.
And
she's probably just got a couple other things on her brain.
And so my name is Jasmine, and I wanted to play with Mom, and I was talking to Anna, and I love Mommy, and she is in her wheelchair, and I was bringing my suitcase, and this is I did gym class in school, and in Miss Kirsty, and I saw Miss Leah too, and I love to run with her, and I'm gonna go to Franklin School in 3 weeks, and I like to call everybody because I like to talk to Dad, and I love Mommy so much because she has her soda whip, and I like going to this place, and I like to eat snacks with Mommy, and I like to and I like to talk to Granny, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Well, my name is Brogan Hauser, and I'm 12 years old, and I live in Madison. I have ADHD. I also am autistic. I'm here to ask today to take up the governor's proposal to fund special education at 50. Funding special needs is going to help me a lot because I feel like when I get into a classroom, it's always about somebody else. The teacher is busy with somebody else, and then she doesn't have enough time for me, and so I think that 50% would help with bringing in more staff, and that would help with kids' brains, because I know from actual experience that having at least 2 adults in the room helps with a kid's mindset. And yeah, that's all I got.
Good afternoon, and thank you for letting us here to share our stories. Inclusion in life and in our words, in our actions, and in our public schools. It's a mindset that brings us together, and it was what has brought me and my daughter here today. To achieve this in a classroom takes dedication, trained and caring staff, and purposeful diversity. We have the means and the tools to continue to grow with one another to achieve these goals, but we will fall short if we do not broaden access and prioritize the budget for our public schools. We are in a pandemic that has exacerbated the individualized needs for our special education students, and I am present here today to support the 50% reimbursement rate that Governor Evers is again advocating for to meet the needs of our special education programs across Wisconsin. The needle was moved 2 years ago, and now it's time to truly hold ourselves accountable and financially support the needs of our most vulnerable students. While I do see a couple familiar faces here today, let me introduce myself. My name is Martha Saravo. I'm the president of Madtown Mamas and Disability Advocates out of Madison. We're a local grassroots advocacy group providing aid to parents during IEPs, where we connect families to resources. And I'm the current title holder of Miss Wheelchair Wisconsin. My platform is Embrace Inclusive Education. I try to reflect my values by participating in multiple committees focused on equity, inclusion, and special education. There is always more work to do. The system is hurting, and we don't need more bandages. We need an intervention. I also support the governor's budget because I have been an active virtual school assistant to my daughter through this entire pandemic. I've become her special education assistant for school, her therapy assistant for any PT, OT, speech, and any other class that she's in, and she's also lucky enough to go to her clinic therapies for PT, OT, and speech, and they have some home-based adaptive boxing programs. I have a profound appreciation for all of her teachers, therapists, and her resilient determination every day. Supporting public schools and special education supports everything she needs to thrive in this world. Wisconsin teachers, students, and families have long been asking for a budget that reflects a public education priority and equitable funding. I'm asking you to be conscious of the problems we face and to be part of a solution that we can all be proud of.
Hello. Thank you for hosting this session. My name is Anna Hauser. I live in Madison, Wisconsin, and I am a single parent to 3 children. You've heard 2 of them speak today. But all of them have extra special support needs. I'm here today to ask you to take up the governor's budget proposal to fund special education at 50% reimbursement rate. Our public schools are chronically underutilizing 504 supports for children because they simply can't afford the expense. No one will say as much, but why else would Wisconsin be tied for the lowest utilization of 504 plans at 0.4% per the CDC, but have such large achievement gaps? My youngest child has an immunodeficiency, and their frequent absences have caused them to fall behind. Despite a well-documented need for support, our school said, quote, "It's COVID. We don't need to evaluate your child for a 504 since they won't be in person." My child is just one of many students who don't receive services and has fallen farther and farther behind. Support is promised, but not guaranteed without these vital 504 services. When it comes time to make cuts, this is a place that it can and does get cut. Ultimately this year, I had no choice but to take them out of school if they had no support, and school is becoming more and more anxiety-inducing. These cut corners for the sake of spending conservation are hurting Wisconsin kids. Teachers and administration are backed into a corner because they've stretched their pennies as far as they can, and there's nothing left. Public schools are a valuable part of our community support, and if I knew my child would not be left behind, I would re-enroll them tomorrow. But as things are now, public schools are drowning. Please throw out a lifeline to kids and take up special education reimbursement proposals. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I am also a cannabis activist in northwestern Wisconsin. Now, there's all sorts of issues talking about today, and I want to talk about how they could benefit Wisconsin as a whole. So I could make comparisons all day as to why weed should be legal when we have things like alcohol and tobacco and cell phones and sugar and all of those things, right? We don't have time for that, and it's not really about that, actually. It's more about freedom, liberty, justice, personal choice, and less government oversight, which, if I'm not mistaken, are primary elements of the Republican Party and conservatives in general. And so even my conservative religious parents at this point fully support cannabis legalization because there are numerous benefits that come along with it. It's a bipartisan issue among voters, and I don't know why that doesn't seem to translate into lawmakers. So I'm here to ask, what are we doing? Why are we kicking this can down the road? We are about to be surrounded by cannabis legal states on all sides. Minnesota just passed it through their 7th committee, and an entire country to the north of us. What are we doing? We are setting Wisconsin back, and all these people in here are asking for money. This is a revenue source, and it's freedom, it's liberty, and justice. And farmers will have a new crop option that's in demand and relatively easy to grow. Medical patients, whether it is cancer patients, hospice patients, kids with epilepsy, or anybody else who just wants to try an alternative source of medicine, would have that opportunity. And business owners and entrepreneurs like myself would have a new option to create business in this area. And I've been to California, I've been to Colorado. Most recently, my wife and I went to Arizona. It's amazing. I can walk into a shop like I'm buying a coffee or a 12-pack of beer. This is asinine. This is not being accepted. Please accept Governor Evers' budget proposal to legalize cannabis both for medical and recreational use for adults. This is his 2nd attempt to do this. You all know it's coming. Let's not set Wisconsin back. Let's move us towards the future. Please. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Jennifer Mcdermott, and I'm the Director of Domestic Violence Victim Services at the Bridge to Hope here in Menomonie. We provide services to victims and survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. I'm here today to ask you that you prioritize housing grant funds and emergency financial assistance dollars. When survivors lose their jobs, there are few government services or supports available to help them meet their basic economic needs. This leaves them more vulnerable to violence and traps them within their violent relationships as a result of economic dependence on their abusive partners. I have personally witnessed the benefits of emergency assistance dollars. A woman, I'll call her Kendra, came into our shelter after leaving her husband of 27 years. Without getting too in-depth and perhaps preaching to the choir, domestic abuse is a vicious cycle of using violence, coercion, threats, finances, and even their own children to assert power and control over a partner. Leaving an abusive relationship doesn't guarantee an end to the abuse. Rather, the abuse often escalates at the time of separation. This happened countless times with Kendra and her relationship, with her husband using her own attempts at legal protections against her, forcing her to drop restraining orders and return to the abuse. After 3 months in our shelter and through the access to the emergency assistance dollars, Kendra was able to move into her own place, a first in her 55 years. The need for safe, immediate, and affordable housing is a significant challenge for survivors of domestic violence and the service providers who work with them. Housing insecurity is a primary reason why survivors stay in abusive relationships and why children continue to be exposed to violence. More than 50% of homeless women have reported that domestic violence was the cause of their homelessness. Though this problem is nationwide, surveys have shown that it is especially severe in Wisconsin. On a single day in 2020, 88% of unmet requests for domestic violence services in Wisconsin were for housing. For this reason, I ask that you please prioritize housing grant funds and emergency financial assistance dollars in this budget for Kendra and others like her whose lives may be saved. Thank you.
My name is Christian Phelps. I'm currently digital organizer at Wisconsin Public Education Network, and I'm from Eau Claire. I want to remind the members of this committee and every member of the general public that our legislators and the governor wield immense power with each and every decision they make over the state budget. I'm testifying because I understand the power of public education. I specifically support a number of proposals in the governor's budget that identify the priority needs of students in our public schools and invest in their programs. I support restoring the state's special education reimbursement rate to 50%, investing $28 million in English language learners, a targeted $75 per pupil aid increase for economically disadvantaged students, and investing in mental health aids. These don't go far enough for my liking, but they are a crucial step toward a better future. I was raised by public school educators. I graduated from public high school in Eau Claire in 2012. I worked as a special ed assistant full-time in Madison and have seen public education from every angle. I've seen the lengths to which educators will go to meet the needs of their students even when staffing is short and resources are limited. I've seen the lengths to which students go to make sure their practical and learning needs are met at school. I also live in the world, and I live in a state that has some of the widest racial disparities in every metric I can name. It is embarrassing and it is dangerous. It shows me that public education can be used in one of two ways: as a powerful catalyst for those gaps, or as a powerful closer of those gaps. There is no in between. These targeted investments would make concrete differences in students' lives, and that's extremely important. But I also feel that we need these investments in order to send the message that Wisconsin is willing to use our powerful public education system to create the equitable, just, and welcoming society we need and deserve. Investing in kids and their priority needs now is an urgent part of building that society. Choosing not to fund public education adequately or equitably would not diminish the power of our public schools. Our public schools are open to every child, and some 850,000 of them already attend these schools. So instead, choosing not to fund these schools equitably and adequately would be a choice to use public education to widen our already shameful gaps. You have a responsibility. How will you use the power of public education?
My name is Heather Dubois-Bournon, and I'm Executive Director of Wisconsin Public Education Network. I also serve on the State Superintendent's Equity Council, and I am the proud parent of 2 children who are receiving an excellent public education in some prairie schools, which has responded nimbly and responsibly to their every need through this pandemic, through virtual learning. And it's my job as a parent and as someone who listens professionally every day to the concerns of other parents, educators, students, school leaders, and school board members around the state to tell you that there's one thing that I know for sure. Through all of this, our schools were never closed. Our schools were never closed, but their needs have never been greater, and our gaps have never been wider. The challenges facing our schools right now, this year, have never been more complex, and our kids have never needed your support more. This pandemic has both exposed and widened inequities that are the direct result of prior budgets that failed to provide for the needs of all of our students, that whittled away at general aids and so disinvested in special education and in English language learner funding that Wisconsin is now worst or near worst in the nation in both categories. Budgets that so increased funding to incarceration while decreasing funding to education that they earned Wisconsin its current rank as the worst place in the U.S. to raise a black child. Meanwhile, I hear lawmakers brag about a modest increase to public education funding in the last budget that didn't even get funding back up to 2006 levels. Over the course of these hearings, we have heard from at least 406 people. At least 46% of these spoke in favor of the governor's budget provisions for K-12 and higher ed funding. You're going to hear from 200 more next week, and we invite you to follow our tracking and check our math at wisconsonnetwork.org/budget. We have heard stirring stories and solid arguments of why those funds are so desperately needed and why they correspond not to a partisan agenda, but to the priority needs of our kids. In spite of this, I fear that you will go into closed session and refuse to acknowledge the will of the people in your final budget, and I'm begging you to do the right thing. Pass a budget that closes our gaps. I've done my job in sharing these grave concerns with you, and I'm imploring you to do your job and making sure that the budget you pass is the budget our kids need and deserve. Thank you.